Good day, learners! Welcome to another fun learning with your math teacher, Jean. Now we are going to discuss about the graphs of a quadratic function. In this lesson, you are expected to learn the following. First, determine the domain, range, intercepts, axis of symmetry, vertex, direction of the opening of the parabola from the given graph of the equation. Second, to analyze the effects of changing the values of a, h, and k of a quadratic function and its graph. So are you ready? Let's start. The graph of a quadratic function is a parabola. So it is a smooth curve that opens upward or downward. The vertex is the turning point of the parabola. It is the highest or the lowest point of the parabola. The vertex is the point whose coordinate is determined by hk. The axis of symmetry is the line which divides the parabola into two parts, such that one half of the graph is the reflection of the other. The line x is equal to h is the equation of the axis of symmetry, and k is the minimum or maximum of the function. Remember that the domain of a quadratic function is the set of all real numbers, while the range of a quadratic function depends on whether the parabola opens upward or downward. If it opens upward, the range is the set of all y such that y is greater or equal to k. If it opens downward, the range is the set of all y such that y is less than or equal to k. The x-intercepts are the points at which the graph of an equation crosses the x-axis. The y-intercepts are the points which the graph of an equation crosses the y-axis. If the value of a is greater than 0, then the parabola opens upward, and it has a minimum point. If a is less than 0, then the parabola opens downward and has a maximum point. The graphs of a quadratic function have different forms. The first form is y is equal to ax squared. If a is positive, the parabola opens upward. If a is negative, the parabola opens downward. The larger the absolute value of a is, the narrower is the graph. The smaller the absolute value of a is, the wider the graph. The vertex is at the origin whose coordinate is 0, 0. The axis of symmetry is the line x is equal to 0 or the y-axis. The second form is y is equal to ax squared plus k. To graph y is equal to ax squared plus k, slide the graph of y is equal to ax squared vertically k units. If k is positive, slide upward. If k is negative, slide downward. The vertex is at the coordinates 0, k. The axis of symmetry is the line x is equal to 0 or the y-axis. The third form is y is equal to a times the square of x minus h. To graph this form, y is equal to a times the square of x minus h, slide the graph of y is equal to ax squared horizontally h units. If h is positive, slide right. If h is negative, slide left. The vertex is at the coordinate h0. The axis of symmetry is the line x is equal to h. Take note that if y is equal to a times the square of x minus h is positive. If y is equal to a times the square of x plus h is negative. The fourth and last form is y is equal to a times the square of x minus h plus k. This is the vertex form of the quadratic function. To graph this form, y is equal to a times the square of x minus h plus k, slide the graph of y is equal to ax squared horizontally h units, right or left, and vertically k units, upward or downward. The vertex is at hk, while the axis of symmetry is the line x is equal to h. For more examples, kindly watch a short clip.
Okay, before we discuss the effects of changing the values of a, h, and k in the graph of a quadratic function, let us first identify the visual characteristics of the graph of a quadratic function. So una, ang graph ng quadratic function ay tinatawag na, yes, tama, parabola. It is called a parabola. So we have here 4 graphs of a quadratic function. And as you can see, the parabolas may open upward, okay, just like this two, or downward. And also, as you can see, some of the parabolas opens wider, while some opens narrower. Also, the graph of the quadratic function has an axis of symmetry. Ano ba ang axis of symmetry? Axis of symmetry is a vertical line. Vertical line that divides the parabola into two equal parts, such that the half of the parabola is an exact reflection of the other part. So in this figure, okay, this line is what we call the axis of symmetry or line of symmetry. And the axis of symmetry has an equation of x is equal to -3. In the second figure, the equation of the axis of symmetry is equal to x is equal to +2. In this figure, or in this function, y is equal to -1/10 x squared plus 1, the axis of symmetry or the line of symmetry coincides with the y-axis. So therefore, the equation of the axis of symmetry is x is equal to 0. While in this function, y is equal to -1/4 x squared minus 2x minus 6, the equation of the axis of symmetry is x is equal to -4. Note that the axis of symmetry or the equation of the axis of symmetry has an equation, or it follows the equation x is equal to h. So now let us graph the most basic function y is equal to ax squared. So let us first have y is equal to x squared. So ang unang-una natin gagawin pag mag-draw tayo ng graph ng quadratic function is to complete a table of values. Okay? Or to make a table of values. So, if x is equal to -2, our y is 4. Given function of y is equal to x squared. If x is equal to -1, then our y is 1. If x is 0, then our y is also 0. If x is 1, our y is 1. And finally, if x is 2, our y is 4. So, iplot natin yung mga points na yan sa ating Cartesian plane. So, the vertex is at 0, 0. Okay? Since y is equal to x squared. So, if x is negative 2, so negative 2, our y is positive 4. So, andito siya. If x is negative 1, then our y is positive 1. If x is 0, then our y is also 0. If x is 1, our y is 1. And if x is 2, then our y is 4. So we are going to join these points by using a smooth curve. Therefore, we have now our parabola. So ito na yung graph ng ating y is equal to x squared. Okay, so as you can see, the vertex is at 0, 0. The axis of symmetry is equal to x is equal to 0. So our axis of symmetry is along the y-axis. Okay? Since our a is 1, the graph opens upward. Therefore, the vertex is a minimum point. So tandaan, if the graph opens upward, the point or the vertex is a minimum point, meaning it is the lowest point in the graph of our quadratic function. And since the axis of symmetry coincides with the y-axis, therefore the equation of the axis of symmetry or the equation of the line of symmetry is equal to x is equal to 0. So we write that as x is equal to 0. Okay, now let us consider the graph of y is equal to 1/10 x squared. So if x is equal to negative 2, our y is 2/5. If x is equal to negative 1, our y is 1/10. And if our x is 0, our y is also 0. If x is 1, our y is 1/10. And if x is 2, our y is 2/5. So therefore, if we are going to graph, okay, so the graph of our parabola looks like this. So as you can see, the graph of y is equal to 1/10 x squared is wider than the graph of y is equal to x squared. Okay, so as you can see, we have here y is equal to 2x squared. So as we can see, based on our graph, if a is greater than 0, the parabola opens upward. Okay? Since the value of a is greater than 1, the graph or the parabola is narrower compared to y is equal to ax squared, wherein your a is equal to 1. And the graph of y is equal to 1/10 x squared is wider because the value of a is greater than 0 but less than 1. Tandaan na pag greater than 0 but less than 1 ang value ng a, mas maluwang yung opening. Okay? Mas maluwang ang opening ng parabola. Pero pag ang value ng a ay mas malaki sa 1 or negative 1 at that, the graph is narrower or the parabola opens narrower. Yung opening ng parabola is narrower. Let us take if x or y is equal to negative x squared. Okay, take note, if the value of a is greater than 0, the parabola opens upward. If a is less than 0, the parabola opens downward. If the value of a is greater than 1, or your a is less than -1, the parabola is narrower. The opening of the parabola is narrower, just like in the case of y is equal to 2x squared. Our a is 2. It is greater than 1. So the opening of the graph is narrower compared to y is equal to x squared. Now, if the value of a is greater than 0 but is less than 1, just like y is equal to 1/10 x squared, wherein our a is 1/10 and 1/10 is definitely greater than 0 but it is less than 1. Therefore, as you can see, the opening of the graph is wider compared to the graph of the first two functions. Okay? Tandaan ninyo, mas malaki ang value ng a, mas masikip yung opening niya. Okay? The greater the absolute value of a, the opening of the graph is narrower. Okay, now we are going to graph y is equal to a times the square of x minus h. So take note that for the set of graphs of the form y is equal to a times the square of x minus h, changing the value of h leads to the horizontal movement of the graph. Ibig sabihin, we are going to shift from y is equal to ax squared, we are going to shift the graph either to the left or to the right. Okay, so for example, we have y is equal to x squared, and we are going to shift the graph y is equal to x squared 3 units to the right. Okay, so we are going to shift the vertex from 0, 0. We are going to count 3 units to the right. So therefore, we have 1, 2, 3. Andito na yung vertex natin. Okay? So therefore, if this is our vertex, that means ito na yung magiging axis of symmetry natin. So from 0, 0 na vertex, it will now become 3, 0. So from y is equal to x squared, if we are going to shift the graph of our quadratic function, therefore it will now become y is equal to x minus 3 squared. So if x is 4, our y, since ito yung vertex natin, so 3, 0. So if x is 4, our y is 1. So most probably nandito. If x is 5, then our y is 5 minus 3, 2, 2 square is 4. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ito, dito siya. Okay? If x is 2, so 2 minus 3, negative 1 square is 1. And if x is 1, therefore, we have 1 minus 3, negative 2 square is 4. So, most probably, yung graph natin is like this. So, naturally, pareho pa rin sila ng itsura ng graph ng y is equal to x squared. Nilipat lang natin ng position. So, from 0, 0 vertex, it will now become 3, 0. So, same na the graph opens upward. However, there is already a change in the equation of the axis of symmetry. Since sabi nga natin, the axis of symmetry is a vertical line that divides the parabola into two equal parts, or it is the line that passes through the vertex. So, ibig sabihin, yung axis of symmetry natin is now equal to 3. Okay? Next, if we are going to shift y is equal to x squared 3 units to the left, so we are going to count 3 units to the left. So, papunta tayo sa negative side. Okay? So, from 0, 0, we are now going to have our vertex at 1, 2, 3. Negative 3, 0. Okay? So, ang axis of symmetry natin is already at x is equal to negative 3. Okay? So, if x is equal to negative 2, so therefore, we can now have our equation y is equal to, syempre yung a natin is 1 kasi shinif natin yung y is equal to x squared. So, y is equal to 1 times quantity x minus h, wherein our h is equal to negative 3 squared. So, simplify natin kasi meron tayong double sign dyan. So, therefore, our graph is y is equal to quantity x plus 3 squared. Okay? So, let us complete our graph. So, ito na yung axis of symmetry natin, like what I've told you. Okay? Yan na yung axis of symmetry. Let us draw an arrowhead here. Arrowhead din dito. Okay? Then, if x is negative 2, our y is 1. If our x is 1, our y is 4. Negative 1, I should say, sorry. If our x is equal to negative 4, our y is 1. If our x is 5, our y is 4. Okay, so therefore, our graph will look like this one. Okay. In graphing y is equal to a times quantity x minus h squared, if h is greater than 0, or if h is positive, take note, h is positive, then the parabola translate h units to the right. You are going to move to the right. H units to the right. Okay? Take note, our h is positive. If your h is negative, or if h is less than 0, we are going to shift the parabola h units to the left. Okay? Mag-shift tayo to the left side. Okay? Kung yung h ninyo is negative. So, take note, if h is negative, you are going to shift to the left. If h is positive, you are going to shift to the right. So, ibig sabihin, if you have y is equal to a times quantity x minus h squared, ang movement ng parabola natin is sidewards, either to the left or to the right. Kung yung h natin is positive, we are going to shift to the right. If we are going to have, or our h is negative, we are going to shift to the left. Okay? Okay, so now let us have y is equal to ax squared plus k. So for the set of graph of the form y is equal to ax squared plus k, changing the value of k leads to the vertical movement of the graph. So take note, if h leads to horizontal movement of the graph or shifting the graph from left to right, ang value ng k, the value of k leads to vertical movement. Vertical movement or movement upward or downward. Okay? I am not talking about the opening but shifting the vertex upward or downward. So if we are going to consider y is equal to x squared, and we want to shift y equal to x squared 3 units upward. So if we are going to shift y is equal to x squared, the vertex of y is equal to x squared 3 units upward, then we're going to have 1, 2, 3. Andito na yung vertex natin. So from 0, 0, nandito na yung vertex natin. Ang magiging vertex na natin is at 0, 3. So 0, 3. So of course, upwards pa rin ang opening ng graph natin. Same amount of opening. Kung gaano kaluwang yung unang parabola natin, dapat ganun din dito sa pangalawa. Therefore, the equation would become y is equal to x squared plus 3. Okay, shinif lang natin 3 units upward. Now, if we want to shift the vertex of our graph y is equal to x squared 3 units downwards, then we are going to have here. Ito na yung magiging vertex natin. It is already at 0, negative 3. Because we want to shift y is equal to x squared 3 units down. So the graph or the equation of our graph will now be y is equal to x squared minus 3. So take note, hindi tayo nagpalit ng a kasi yung graph pa rin natin, ang shift lang natin is y is equal to x squared. So we still have the same a. We just add negative 3 because we shift our graph 3 units downward. Okay? So most likely, yung graph natin will look like this one. Okay? So take note, for y is equal to ax squared plus k, the movement of our graph is either upwards or downward. Upward kung ang value ng k natin is positive, plus. But if the value of our k is negative, then we are going to shift downward. Again, pareho pa rin yung line of symmetry natin. It is along the x-axis. Therefore, the graph or the equation rather of the axis of symmetry is x is equal to 0. Since our vertex, again, ang coordinate ng vertex natin is at HK. So, vertical movement lang tayo. Okay? Now, let us have the graph of y is equal to quantity x minus h squared plus a. So, what do you think is the effect of the values of a, h, and k to the graph of the quadratic function of this form? Suppose we have y is equal to x minus 2 squared minus 3. What would be the graph look like? Okay, yes. Since the value of our A is, what is the value of our A? Yes, very good. It is 1. So, since the value of our A is 1, therefore the graph opens upward. Okay? Since the equation is given in vertex form, we can easily identify the vertex, and the vertex has a coordinate of hk. Our h is 2 and our k is negative 3. So our vertex is at positive 2, negative 3. Yan yung coordinate ng vertex natin. So therefore, pag i-graph natin, okay, andito siya na quadrant. Okay, so positive 2, negative 3. So here, nandito yung vertex natin. Vertex is at positive 2, negative 3. Okay? Since nandito yung vertex natin, ibig sabihin, dadaan dyan yung axis of symmetry. Yung line of symmetry natin. Okay? So, the axis of symmetry or the equation of the axis of symmetry is x is equal to h, which is positive 2. Since our graph opens upward, most likely, ganito yung itsura ng graph natin. So, yan. So, if we are going to graph a quadratic function of the form y is equal to a times quantity x minus h squared plus k, the movement will be left and right, depende dun sa value ng h natin. In this case, the value of our h is positive 2, so therefore we move to the positive side or to the right. And the k movement dictates us, or the value of k dictates us whether we are going to move upward or downward. So in this case, in this graph, since our k is negative 3, that means our graph will be shifted downwards. And of course, since the value of our A is 1 and 1 is positive, therefore, the opening of the graph opens upward. In the same manner, if you're going to graph y is equal to negative x plus 1 square plus 2. For example, we have y is equal to negative of the square of x plus 1 plus 2. So, first, let us identify our vertex. So, our vertex in the given function is at, what is our h? It means our h is negative. So, our h is negative 1. Bakit siya positive dyan? Kasi, if h is negative, take note that the original equation is x minus h. So, minus. So, negative times an h which is negative, that is equal to positive. So, pag hindi nyo pinalitan ng sign yan, ibig sabihin yung sign ninyo or yung h ninyo is positive, like this one. Negative times positive 2 is negative 2, so minus 2 pa rin dyan. Pero pag yung h nyo is negative, so negative times negative is positive. So, ito yung result, x plus 1. So, ang k natin is positive 2. So, therefore, our vertex is at will be found at this quadrant. Quadrant? What quadrant? Quadrant 4, yes. So we have -1, +2. So nandito yung graph natin. Ay, nandito yung vertex, I should say. So the vertex is at this point. Since the value of our A is -1, negative kasing nakalagay dyan, so our A is -1. So A is negative, so that means the graph opens downward. So the graph opens downward. Approximate na natin yung graph natin. So the graph opens downward and our axis of symmetry is here. The line of symmetry is here. And the equation of our axis of symmetry is x is equal to -1. Okay? Okay, so without sketching the graph of y is equal to -2 times the square of x minus 7 plus 5, can we possibly identify the opening of the graph, the coordinates of the vertex, and the equation of the axis of symmetry? Yes. Okay, so by just looking at the quadratic function, since it is already written in vertex form, we can easily identify the opening of the parabola, the coordinates of the vertex, as well as the equation of the axis of symmetry without actually sketching the graph. So first is for us to identify the opening of the graph. So ano bang opening ng graph natin? Since our A is -2, therefore, A is negative, A is less than 0, then the opening of the graph is downward. So the opening of the graph is downward, therefore, the vertex, we can conclude that the vertex is the maximum point. And what is that vertex? What is the coordinate of our vertex? The coordinate of the vertex is determined by hk, by the coordinates hk. And in the function, the given function, what is the value of our h? Yes, our h is 7. How about our k? Yes, +5. So there, the vertex has a coordinate of 7, 5. How about the axis of symmetry? The equation of the axis of symmetry. The equation of the axis of symmetry is determined by x is equal to h, and our h is 7. So therefore, the equation of the axis of symmetry is x is equal to 7. What if we have y is equal to x squared minus 6x plus 5? What would be our vertex, the coordinates of the vertex, the equation of the axis of symmetry, and the opening of the graph? Yes, the opening of the graph is upwards. Upwards, bakit? Yes, because the value of A is 1 and 1 is greater than 0. That means the opening of the graph is upward. How about the vertex? Since the quadratic function that is given is in general form, therefore, we need to transform this into the vertex form. So the vertex form, take note, the vertex form of the quadratic function is determined by the equation y is equal to a times x minus h squared plus k. So we can transform this general form of the quadratic function into vertex form in two ways. We can make use of the formula for h and k. The formula for h is negative b over 2a. And k is what? Yes, we have 4ac minus b squared over 4a. Or simply, we can make use of completing square method. So let us just use completing squares to transform this into vertex form. So, i-complete lang natin itong square ng x squared minus 6x plus 5. So, first, we are going to isolate the constant. So, we are going to complete this. Gagawin nating perfect square trinomial. So, what will be added to x squared minus 6x so that it would become a perfect square trinomial. So, we have to divide the value of p by 2 and then yes, square. So, negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 square is, yes, positive 9. So, pag nag-add kayo dyan ng 9 dito, magsusubtract naman kayo. Okay? Para mag-cancel out. So, therefore, we are going to turn this as a square of a binomial. So, we have x minus 3 squared. Then, simplify this. We have minus 4. So, therefore, we already have the vertex form. So, therefore, the vertex is, yes, it has a coordinate of 3, positive 3, negative 4. And the equation of the axis of symmetry is 3.
Now let us go to the following activity. Sketch the graph of f of x is equal to the negative square of the sum of x and 1 plus 2 and identify the following. Vertex. What is the coordinate of the vertex? Yes, the coordinate of the vertex is negative 1 and 2. What is the opening of the parabola? Yes, the opening of the parabola is downward. Why? Because the value of a in the function is negative. What is the equation of the axis of symmetry? The equation of the axis of symmetry is x is equal to negative 1. What is the domain of the function? The domain is the set of all real numbers. How about the range? The range is the set of all y such that y is less than or equal to 2. And finally, is the vertex a minimum or a maximum point? Yes, well done. The vertex is a maximum point since the parabola opens downward. So therefore, the sketch of the graph is this. Okay, so that ends our lesson. Thank you and God bless.